All right, welcome everyone. Please stand and join us with a moment of silence, followed by the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Hi everybody, my name is Peter and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is March 17th of 2012, and for that I'm grateful. Welcome to the 7 p.m. Thursday night meeting of the Treasure Map Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, or an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. Before we start our evening, please remember to shut off or silence your cell phones. Thank you. We send out a special welcome to any visitors from out of town. Please stand and introduce yourself. All right. Also, anyone who may be visiting the Treasure Map meeting for the first time. Oh, yeah, one. Oh, welcome. All right. Oh, go ahead and introduce yourself. All right, welcome. And Matt? Where are you from, Matt? Hey, Dallas. All right, welcome. Hey, also anyone who may be visiting the Treasure Map meeting for the first time, please stand and introduce yourself. My name is Tyler. Hey, Tyler. Welcome. Finally, if there's anyone here who's at their first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, please stand and be recognized. We are very happy you came here tonight. You are welcome here. All right. The Treasure Map Group of Alcoholics Anonymous believes in working the 12 steps as outlined in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous with a sponsor. There are many home group members here tonight who are willing to be sponsors. If you're new or you don't have a sponsor, you can stop at the back table during the break and see Randy, and that is the back table right over there. We can give you names and numbers for home group members willing to sponsor others. All right, the Treasure Map Group of Alcoholics Anonymous is committed to bringing a message of hope to those who suffer from alcoholism. We believe this message is contained within the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and our personal experiences. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy. Neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. All right, in our meeting tonight, we'll focus on step 11, and we'll be handing out big books during the break. So if you don't have one, please feel free to ask. We have plenty to go around. Other than that, we do have a few, we have actually several announcements tonight. Monthly online fulfillment of Tradition 7 is available today. Any support of the Treasure Map meeting goes to support our meeting and its bills, events, speaker costs, birthday celebrations, and newcomer welcome meetings. To begin online Tradition 7 fulfillment, see Randy at the back table or go to treasuremapmeeting.com. And that's Randy way in the back there in the orange shirt, if anybody was wondering. So, in addition, the Treasure Map Group is a proud financial supporter of the local Sioux Falls Intergroup, SE South Dakota AA District 5, AA statewide in South Dakota, which is Area 63, and Worldwide AA through World Services in New York. Also, if you give online, please grab a tag and place it in the basket as it passed, and you can see those tags there. They're on the tables. So, please feel free to take our Treasure Map 12-step cards and We got new redesigned cards right here. They're also, I believe, on the tables out there. So they're a great way to pass on your information about the Treasure Map meeting. Plus, you can place your name and phone number on the back to assist others in the program. All Big Book studies are up on our website, treasuremapmeeting.com. These studies cover all pages from the preface through chapter 6, including step 11. Please feel free to use these as an aid to your program, step work, or to assist in sponsoring others. Chapter 7, working with others, step 12 will be posted this week. We've heard good feedback from people doing Big Book studies within their homes, weekly coffee groups, and informal gatherings of friends. We look forward to more of these studies starting up. Our Big Book study is designed to provoke discussion and thought, not to be the final word on the book. We realize we know only a little. All right, special events are all listed on the homepage of our website. February 9th through the 10th, Area 63 Winter Assembly is being held in Pierce, South Dakota. For more details, you can see Amy H., the Treasure Map Meetings General Service Representative, and Amy's holding her hand up right there. So, all right. Okay. And March 7th, newcomers welcoming meeting. Bring as many newcomers as you can. Our goal this quarter is to have 35 folks with 1 year or less. All right. And Big Book Step Working Workshop. Part 1, early spring 2019. This 1.5 day workshop will be a time to actually work the steps. We will have handouts, big books, and everything you will need to start and complete step 1 through 9. Also, free Joe and Charlie Big Book studies will be raffled off to participants, and those are pretty cool. So, Big Book Step Working Workshop Part 2 will be in late spring. This is a 1-day workshop, and will be a continuation of the early spring 2019 workshop. We'll have everything you will need to start and complete step 10 through 12. Also, free Joe and Charlie Big Book studies will be raffled to participants. All right, and the exact dates will follow very soon on both of those. So. District 5 Corrections and Treatment Committee, looking for folks to run meetings at the Minnehaha County Jail, Work Release Center, South Dakota State Penitentiary as well. Now background check is required, a minimum of 3 months of continuous sobriety also. You can contact Matt at mcexpert.com. Also, next week is birthday night for home group members. So if you are a home group member and you want to celebrate your birthday, that would be the night. Just let us know. Let Randy know. Typically, we have a sign-up sheet at the back too, but just let Randy know. We celebrate every month for the first 12 months, and then every year thereafter. So, okay. Right, and now if you'll please welcome Tyler to read How It Works from our textbook, Alcoholics Anonymous. So, thank you, Tyler. Or Taylor.
My name's Tyler. I'm an addict. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. They are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. At some of these, we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us, but there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order! I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. C, that God could and would if he were sought.
All right, thank you, Pam. Okay, and now if you would please welcome Pam to read our 12 traditions as we pass baskets. Thank you in advance for your generosity and support. Tradition 7 states every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions.
Hi, everybody. I'm Pam. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Pam.
Here are the 12 traditions. 1, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. 2, for our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants. They do not govern. 3, the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. 4, each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. 5, each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. 6, an AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7, every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8, Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9, AA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. 10, Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11, our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. And 12, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities.
Thanks, Pam.
All right, we talk a lot about home group membership at the Treasure Map Group because we believe it is vital to our recovery. What does that mean to be a home group member? Here's a brief excerpt from the AA General Service Conference group pamphlet on the AA group. Traditionally, most AA members through the years have found it important to belong to one group that they call their home group. This is the group where they accept service responsibilities and try to sustain friendships. And although all AA members are usually welcome at all groups and feel home at any of these meetings, the concept of the home group has still remained the strongest bond between the AA member and the fellowship. With membership comes the right to vote on issues that might affect the group and might also affect AA as a whole. process that forms the very cornerstone of AA service structure. As with all group conscience matters, each group AA member has one vote, and this ideally is voiced through the home group. Over the years, the very essence of AA strength has remained with our home group, which for many members becomes our extended family. Once isolated by our drinking, we find in the home group a solid continuing support system, friends, and very often a sponsor. We also learn firsthand through the group's workings how to place principles before personalities in the interest of carrying the AA message. Talking about her own group, a member says, "Part of my commitment is to show up at the home group meetings, greet newcomers at the door, and be available to them, not only for them, but for me. My fellow group members are the people who know me, listen to me, and steer me straight when I'm off in left field. They give me their experience, strength, and AA love, enabling me to pass it on to the alcoholic who still suffers." If you're interested in making the Treasure Map meeting your home group, please see Randy either at the back table or on the break or after the meeting. And that's Randy back there. So, okay, and now we're going to take a short 10-minute break before our main speaker for tonight. So, say we'll just meet back here at 7:30. So that works for everybody. All right. Thank you.
Is everybody back?
All right, if everybody can please take their seats, we're gonna get going here. We just have a quick announcement here about the Sioux Empire Roundup and the spring conference. So please welcome Amy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amy. I'm an alcoholic. First of all, the Sioux Empire Roundup, there is a registration form up here if you have questions. It is the second weekend of March, the 8th, 9th, and 10th at the Ramkota. Lots of great things going on there. Lots of fellowship. Really recommend going if you haven't been before. Also, for the Area 63, in 2020, we are hosting, Sioux Falls is hosting that conference. And we need people to come to the conference committee and help us get it planned and get it started. Randy and I are on the committee, but we need like registrations. We need all of these things. We need lots of people to come. So the next time we are meeting, since it is so far away, we're meeting on the second Sunday of March. We'll be at Westside at 4:30. If you have questions, you can come see me after. But if you're interested in finding some way of getting involved, this is a great way to do it. Thank you. 4:30. 4:30 the second Sunday. Westside.
What's the date?
The 10th, 4:30.
Yeah. Sunday after, right before the District 5 meeting.
Yeah, 4:30, the 10th, West Side. All right.
Hey, as long as she's got the floor, a few weeks ago, we had some questions from some of the newer people about the service structure and the hierarchy. We threw out these terms like District 5, Area 63, nobody knows what we're talking about. Can you just give just a brief summary of how that whole thing lays out? Either way, whatever you want to do.
So the service structure of AA is kind of built as an upside down triangle. And the top part of the triangle, which is normally would be the base, is really what you are, right? Members of Alcoholics Anonymous. Next, we would have the group conscience, which is what we do once a month, where your opinions and your thoughts of how we can make AA better or anything along those lines or any changes that are coming down and what your opinions on those are goes to group conscience. And from group conscience, you have a GSR, or General Service Representative. And that is the position that I hold here at Treasure Map. And each group has one. And we go to our District 5. South Dakota is built just kind of like, I guess, the way I kind of equate it is a lot like Congress, right? We have different people representing different areas. So from there, we have our district, and then there's like District 6 and District 7, all these different areas. And we have different members of groups that come and speak and talk about what you guys have felt about certain things that have been going on or different ideas. And then from there, we bring it to the area level. So every quarter, we have either an assembly or a conference. We all get together and we discuss the different changes and different opinions that you guys have or thoughts of, like I said, how to make AA better. From there, we have our district or our delegate. We have one individual from either the east side or the west side of the state that travels to New York and represents South Dakota for what our thoughts are and what our opinions are. So it is very, very important to get involved in those things. If there's something that you're like, I don't really like how this is said or what this does, or, I think this would be better if we did it this way, or if there, why do we do these kinds of things? Go to the group conscience, get involved in intergroup, get involved in district, because your opinions and your thoughts and how to make this be sustainable matters. So like I said, if there's the meeting on the second Sunday of March for our Area 63 conference, right before District 5 meeting, you're welcome to come and hang out and check it out. And intergroup meets on the third Sunday of the month. I'm not quite sure of the location, but I know that they're in desperate need of assistance. So that would be something to look into if you're looking for a service commitment.
All right, thanks, Amy. Okay, and now I would like to introduce our main speaker for the night, Eric M. from Colton, South Dakota, and he's going to speak on step 11. So please join me in welcoming Eric.
Good evening. I'm Eric. I'm an alcoholic. Really grateful to be here, really to be anywhere. But it's always an honor to get here and to share here. I know, welcome to all of those folks listening online. A lot of us had just traveled this last weekend up to North Dakota to a conference, the Rule 62 conference. And in Bismarck in January, which tells me a couple of things. Number one, that the people up there are, you know, they could have done it in July. That's what I'm always saying. It's cold. And, you know, the second thing is just the quality of the people that will go. I don't know how many countries were coming into that conference. Mike spoke on step 11. Yeah, it was just a tremendous weekend, but it's, you know, I see a lot of the young guys' faces the first time, you know, that they've been exposed. That's why this roundup is coming up. I mean, we were there at the first one, and it's just a real powerful experience. If you haven't taken in these conferences, I would highly recommend it, because it's just kind of like being in an AA, I don't even know, pressure cooker. And I'm just really grateful, because it's these types of things. We're going to talk tonight on step 11, which to me, I was talking to Tom, and it's so great to have Tom back in my life. Tom was my sponsor for many years, 30 years now. And we kind of went different directions as life takes us. And to have him back in the area, you know, it doesn't get any better than that. But it's just the whole process of people and message, and all of this is spiritual. You know, I don't know how many times I've heard, and I continue to hear, the spiritual part of this program, whatever that means. Because there isn't a thing that this book lays out as the program of action that isn't spiritual in nature, spiritually based, because it all works together. You know, as we talk about step 11 here out of the big book tonight, in the 12 and 12, it talks about the principle of inventory, self-examination. It has spiritual roots. And it says, when practiced on a regular basis, it brings great benefit to an individual's life. I found that to be true. It says, prayer and meditation, when practiced on a regular basis, almost like a muscle memory process of that openness, does the same. Great benefit to people who have done it. But it says when those two principles and tools are intertwined, it said something even more magical happens. It gives you an unshakable foundation for living. Well, that's some powerful words. Examination, inventory, which is in step 11. We talk a lot about the daily inventory, and people say, well, that's step 10. And, you know, we can, semantics, it's really not important, but in there it talks about the daily inventory at night when we retire. I found that to be very beneficial as a tool in my recovery. Prayer and meditation, didn't know a darn thing about what that looked like. I have found over the years to not only it not be this woo-woo kind of, you know, I'm praying to something I don't know kind of thing, and I'm waiting for the lightning bolt kind of thing, to something that's very practical and has saved my butt more times than not. So the tools that we're going to talk about, I'm going to read through some of this tonight, because I think this is more the nuts and bolts, but I cannot do that without intertwining my experience within these and how they've applied to my life. I also think it's so important to identify in this program. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story up to this point, and I think I'm going to tonight do something a little different, is my spiritual walk, because I thought when I came here that, you know, I'd never had any formal religion. training. Our household, we didn't have talks of God. My only experience growing up where I had encountered what I would call traditional spiritual outlets was when people were trying to fix me. They would send me to those people. And I'm here to report is they rejected me. They sent me away. It was like, oh my God, who dropped this guy off? And but yet, as I look back now with maybe a little bit more open eyes and a little bit more understanding that comes with time and work, the two tools we talk about in here is how do we intertwine inventory with prayer, and then a step further, working with other people. I think I've got a clear idea that I've been on a spiritual journey all my life, didn't know it. I've had a spiritual thirst inside of me all my life, didn't know it. I think a lot of what has ailed me over the years, the restlessness, the disconnect, just this wall that came between me and anything, and this feeling of that I was like an alien, literally, on a planet. You all had it together, at least you looked like it, that even as far back as I can remember, there was something wrong with me. And I do believe today, looking back, as some of the writers that I really look at, it was a spiritual thirst inside of me. Didn't know it. I think that's why when I took my first drink of alcohol, in spite of all the protestations and the ideas and the examples in front of me of what it did to the people, didn't matter anymore when I took that first drink, is because the effect that it had on me was, as Father Rock told me, he said, Eric, you're the kind of guy, the action of alcohol is the closest thing to a spiritual experience that isn't. It's a counterfeit. But I remember life going from kind of this gray, mundane, I like old movies, but, they always do it in London, somebody's dying, but there's always this fog, gray, there's no color. That was my life. This is before I ever touched alcohol. I just didn't fit. And I remember the first time I drank alcohol, it was like the first time we went from a black and white TV to a color. And it was like my life lit up. Again, it quenched this spiritual thirst that I had inside of me in a way that was going to take me down the road of destruction. So, my experience with alcohol has always been spiritual in nature. I find it interesting, when you go to the liquor stores, it says wine and spirits. And I really do believe that there's a spiritual component, at least for the guys like me, that when I take a drink, I suffer from this allergy, and honest to God, I can't tell you when my next drink is. I cannot. The craving just overwhelms me. And I remember the first time that, I tried some drinks, and I was serving one of my dad's parties or whatever. I was like the cute little cocktail waiter. And I never drank the stuff, but at some point, I can't remember what happened. I don't even remember what it was, but there was enough left in a glass. In the glass, my dad had these really fancy, I can picture it right now, these fancy tumblers, man. And I just did this. I don't know why. And I had this sensation that went into me again, that went from black and immediately. I didn't like the taste. It burned. It did all kinds of stuff. But I remember there was a ballooning or something. It was like something activated in me, and it did. And I remember then looking for drinks and trying to help people get their drink freshened earlier. And by the end of the night, I was the entertainment at that party. I'm not even 10 years old. I remember the first time that I was able to plan, and girls had become kind of an exciting prospect in my life. And I think we're maybe 5th or 6th grade, I started to notice, especially little Becky. Now, you don't know Becky. Don't either. I did. She was my first fantasy. We talk about sex stuff in here and relationships, fancied or real. Well, she was fancy. But she just had this thing. She ran in slow motion. Her hair. And I just noticed her. Well, we had an opportunity to go down to the skating rink That was a big deal back then, and Becky was going to be there, but we thought we needed something. And I remember going to my dad's, he had this extensive liquor cabinet. It was quite impressive, actually. And I wanted to steal the bottle that I knew didn't get used as much. And I grabbed, knowing in my, again, I had everything from the best whiskey to down. It shows I had no experience because I took gin. And I drank a whole quart back in those days of gin that night because it just seemed like I had a high propensity that when I put alcohol in, I got thirstier. And I remember parts of that evening being kind of fun, and then I remember parts of that evening being gone, and I had my first blackout. I remember coming to the next day, and I was wrapped around, I was clothed, but I was wrapped around some kind of a African animal. I was sleeping with a stuffed zebra that was in the basement of somebody's house that was a big game hunter. And I don't even know whose house it is. Now, normally if that happened, anything else, if I ate something or something like that, and it ended up me sleeping with a zebra, I probably wouldn't do it again. But I remember there's a thought in me, and it hurt, hungover, dry heaves, all that stuff, is that I'm going to do that at every opportunity I can. And I did. That's really the start of my journey. Alcohol worked for me, but I was a blackout drinker, and even in early part of high school. Good God, I mean, nothing ever good happened to me in a blackout. I'm still looking for anybody that got a job promotion or maybe won the lottery in a blackout, if you could report to me, because it's just tragic things. And that's where I was introduced to other drugs at that point, because I was trying, even in my early high school years, to try to get a handle on the negative effects of my excessive drinking. And I found that if I smoked some of that marijuana that my brother had, I'd steal some of that and smoke it. I wouldn't drink as much. Later on, I found that there was this little powdery substance called cocaine that I could drink with impunity. And every drug that I've ever used has been in an attempt to enjoy and control my drinking. And then in themselves had developed their own little sets of problems, to the point to where by the time I'm introduced to this program and all the failings, and I'm not going to go through, but just constant attempts to either change my environment, change my friends, and lost opportunities, full ride scholarship to the University of Hawaii. I lost all this stuff that I just ended up in a point to where I just lived. I was really the alcoholic in here. I was never more mildly, I was always insanely intoxicated. And then I would begin, the blackouts started coming back with the cocaine, to where I would have sometimes blackouts for 2 of the worst 3 days. I'd party in the city and come to in another. I drove. I remember crash landing, and I had no idea of you people. I knew no idea of treatment. And again, I had no idea of God at that time or awareness in my life. And a guy that had multiple DUIs. I didn't get any DUIs. Multiple DUIs, used to go away for 30 days. And then we'd always throw a party when he got out. I had no idea what went on. But I knew that he went to a place. And then a blackout, particularly just terrible run, to where I literally destroyed physically anything that had any value in my life. And I remember coming to the realization that I was an animal. I remember sitting on that bed at this hotel. I paid $100 for a week, no maid service. Just leave me the hell alone. I bought as much whiskey as I thought was necessary, and I had maybe, I don't know, a quarter pound of Coke. And I went to about ending this deal, and I pumped as much of that crap in me as I could get in me, and I drank that thing, and I ended up in some state, and I had really my first active spiritual experience that night. And it was when I was laying on that bed, and I felt rigor mortis setting in, and there's this dim light, and part of me is wanting that to happen. I just want this to end, this madness. And then these individuals gathered around my bed, and they were celebrating the fact of my death. And they weren't friendly looking folks. And I remember looking at them, and I remember screaming as loud as I could, but I don't believe my lips moved. Help. Because I looked at these things, and it was some of the scariest preachers I've ever seen, and they were more than pleased. Next thing I know, I came 2-3 days later in Keystone Treatment Center with my nose up against a brick wall. I thought I was in jail. I was in detox. And it began my introduction to you people and this idea that what really AA offers is for a guy like me that's hopeless. I'm a hopeless condition, mind, body, spirit. That there's an opportunity to come from that point of where there's no human aid that can get me out. And as this book says, for me, I was hopeless. There had been many interventions throughout those years, either legal, family, counselor, psychiatrist, church camps. They'd send me to it all, and I always come out of that thing, not help, but actually more hopeless, because I just couldn't measure up. I knew there was something. I've always had this thing that this isn't going to end well. And I was introduced to you people that came in and spoke. I remember just the physical torment. And my first spiritual experience that I had in this program was sometime after the heart attack I had my first heart attack and detox there. The gal that currently works for me was my nurse and saved my life. And I remember shortly after that, I'm up in this little fireside room, and I got a guitar, being a musician, and I am as empty of a vessel as I ever, and I'm more aware of it than ever in this hopelessness of just everything I've done. Now, I'm 26, 27 years old, and my life is over because all the sum total of my decisions, there's no coming back. All the opportunities that I've experienced are gone. And I'm sitting there with this guitar in that moment, and I'm more aware of how empty and doomed the four horsemen, terror, bewilderment, it's oozing out of me, and I'm alone at 3 a.m. up there, and I had an experience of sorts. And all of a sudden, I felt this warmth come from me from the top, and it filled me down as I'm up there just yearning for something, hope, something. And I'd had enough of the AA guys, and there's something broken. I'm not like you. I mean, you're different. And in that instant, I believe, and I know today, I was filled with this thing called the grace of God for a moment. And I had an experience. That experience in itself served one purpose and one purpose only. And it's really for me. And that was that I was aware that the things that I was hearing from people's mouths about this presence of God, the importance of God, that God cared, a God personal, this conception, whatever it is, because I had none, that it was real. And that he had come to me in that state. I wrote a song. I tried to find it in my original big book, but I've been through so many of these big books that it's somewhere. I'll have to check with my wife. And I wrote a song that night, and I remember playing it. And the words were given to me, which has happened later in my life. And for that moment, I sat in what I think I feel and experience today on most days is this sense of wholeness and fulfillment in my life. So when we talk about spiritual experiences, because a hopeless state and what AA offers is as a result is this spiritual thing, this spiritual experience, spiritual awakening. And over here, they've known for years, even Jung talked about that when he worked back with Roland I don't know how to produce it, but I know it's happened. And I really do believe that, you know, the steps and what happened here, the miracle of this isn't so much as the recognition of that. I think they've known that for years. It's how do you produce it? How do you mass produce it? What are the things that we can do that can guarantee that you will have this thing that will solve all your problems? Prayer and meditation are a part of those components, but they're not the only spiritual things that we do in this deal. Bill Wilson had a lightning bolt. But I also believe that if you look at the book, Bill Wilson then took the steps and had the educational variety too. There's two different kinds of spiritual experiences in here that they talk about. And I think in order for me to be comfortable in my skin and have something to really give, even if I've been hit by a lightning bolt, which I have on several occasions, it still doesn't negate the necessity for me to work these steps and have a spiritual experience as a result of these steps. I think we need both. I got a neighbor that's a great guy, Mike, just great guy. He was driving in California back in the 70s and 80s it was just a free-for-all. I mean, cocaine everywhere, dope. I mean, it was just a free-for-all. And his life was a complete mess. And he said he worked at this factory and he was driving down 101 one morning and he got hit by the lightning bolt of God. Instantly changed his life. And when he got to work, he met people to reinforce that. And he was walking in this factory, the other shift coming off, they're telling him, it happened to you. People he didn't know, it happened to you. We know, welcome to the family. They would say all these things to him. It's just freaking him out. But it sobered him up instantly, and he's not had a touch of alcohol or drugs since that time. But he's envious of me and of us. He's had a beautiful life, got a great family. But, you know, Mike can't go, and the call goes out and the flare goes up that somebody needs to sober up. Mike can go over there and he'd say, you know, I used to be a drunk just like you, and I used to have this problem just like you, and I'm sober today. And they say, okay, tell me, how'd you do it? He says, well, you got to get in a car, drive down 101, and wait for the lightning. And I think that's what Jung told Roland. Wait for the lightning. This spiritual walk that I've been on has not been easy. When I was new, I would look at guys like Tom. Tom, you know, he had it all together. Now, I know today he was only 3 years sober. He's probably crazier than a bastard gopher. Did I just say that on him? But he had it together. I looked at guys with 20 years. I thought they floated above the ground. I thought that spirituality and this development, it allowed me to avoid or float above life with an ease and comfort. I've not experienced that. If you have, good for you. Mine has been ugly, dirty, messy, a series of bad decisions led by further surrender, further inventory, more confession, and more opening myself up to God to do with me as He would see fit. It's been at times humbling, at other times humiliating, and at other times it has been the most transformative experience that I can't put words to it. Is the result of doing these steps. This is not silly. When I look at these steps look kind of, well, duh. Especially if you take them off the wall and not out of the book. But they have literally answered every need that has entered my life since I surrendered to do them. Now, I fight it all the time. Step 11, I'd like to stand up here. I drove from Black Hills to come to the meeting, and there was a lot of conferencing and stuff going on, so I had business to deal with. But then I had some time to meditate on tonight. And I'm telling you, at 4:30, if you'd have been here at 4:30 on the west side of Sioux Falls, you'd have gotten a much more spiritual speaker. Because I was on a roll, baby, and then I hit traffic coming in, and all that spirituality ran out my legs, down my arms. I told Mike, I said, you should have seen me earlier, man. I was really on a roll in my head. Spirituality, to me, is a very practical thing. It says in here, and I love the other thing about this. Step 11 suggests prayer and meditation on the bottom of 85. It says we shouldn't be shy on this matter of prayer. Better men than we are using it constantly. It works if we have the proper attitude and work at it. It would be really easy to be vague about this matter, yet we believe we can make some definite and valuable suggestions. Now, for those of us that haven't tried this, I love the way Bill did this, because you can start step 11 today. It's not like, well, tomorrow. I mean, if I'd have wrote this book, I'd have been the paragraph down. On awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. That'd have given me some slide tonight. But he starts with when we retire at night. So we can start this tonight. It says we constructively review our day. We look for those 4 horsemen that are really we discover through these steps that are really the enemies, these defects. And we, this big book filters them down to the things that are really going to take me out. It's not the Jack Daniels, it's not the ex-wife, it's the things called resentment, selfishness, dishonesty, or fear. We look for them, and it says, do we owe an apology? Have we kept something to ourselves? Were we kind and loving toward all? Could we have done better? Were we thinking of ourselves most of the time, or thinking of what we could do for others? It says we must be careful not to drift into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection, for that diminishes our usefulness to others. After making our review, we ask God's forgiveness. And I remember reading that, and I thought, how do they know that I need it? I mean, it tells me, and it's told me time and time again, that every day, I don't care if I do an honest appraisal, I've always fallen short. Always. We ask God forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. On awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day. Now, I want you to stop and make note of every time they use the word thinking, which is really one of the main problems that I face, is this thinking problem. We consider our plans for the day. Before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking, especially asking it that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motive. Under these conditions, we can employ our mental faculties with assurance, for after all, God gave us brains to use. Our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives. In thinking about our day, we may face indecision. We may not be able to determine which course to take. Here, we ask God for inspiration, an intuitive thought, or a decision. We relax and take it easy. We don't struggle. We are surprised how the right answers come after we have tried this for a while. It says, what used to be the hunch or an occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind. Being still inexperienced and having just made conscious contact with God, it is not probable we are going to be inspired at all times. We might pay for this presumption in all sorts of absurd actions and ideas. Nevertheless, we find that our thinking will, as time passes, be more and more on the plane of inspiration. We come to rely on it. We usually conclude this period of meditation with a prayer, that we be shown all through the day what our next step is to be, and that we be given whatever we need to take care of such problems. We ask especially for freedom from self-will, and we are careful to make no requests for ourselves only. We may ask for ourselves, however, if others would be helped. We are careful never to pray for our own selfish ends. Many of us have wasted a lot of time doing that. It does not work. It goes on here, it says, if we're not members of religious bodies, we select, sometimes memorize, set prayers which emphasize the principles. There's a lot of helpful books, and it says we can go get these from priests, rabbis, religious leaders. Be quick to see where religious people are right. Make use of what they offer. And this next line has saved my bacon, I think, more than probably any line in this book when I can remember to do it. As we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful. Good God, has that saved me a lot of humble pie. And ask for the right thought or action. Constantly reminding ourselves that we are no longer running the show, humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, thy will be done. We are then in much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, and foolish decisions. We become much more efficient. We do not tire so easily, for we are not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. It works, it really does. We alcoholics are undisciplined, so we let God discipline us in the simple way we have just outlined. In the third step, it talks about making a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God. And I remember I've heard many different definitions of what that means. From Joe and Charlie tapes, I've heard, the will is our thoughts, some of our thoughts. From our life is our actions. And then later on, when, talking to other people, is that not only is our will some of our thoughts, but it's really the sum of our desires. And so when I'm seeking through prayer and meditation for two things, it's knowledge of God's will, his thoughts and desires for me. And the second thing is for the power. Really, if you look through this big book, at what we're really looking for is those two things all the way through. Knowledge of his will, his thoughts, and his desires for me in my life, and for the power to carry it out. I've heard in meetings and with certain speakers that it's impossible to understand and know God's will. I respectfully disagree. And again, this is just my experience. Through these helpful books, through these religious leaders, through working with other people, through the exercise of this deal, I think I have learned quite a bit from where I started from on my conception of God, his character, his thoughts toward me, and what he wants from my life. I remember going to Father Rock and saying, this God's will thing is kind of hard. And he said, Eric, the way you've lived, it shouldn't be too hard. Just take what you've been doing and back away from it. You know what not to do. But the character of God for me and the will of that and how he views me is really a part of what I think has been revealed. And even more importantly, of what the role of Alcoholics Anonymous is, not only in my life, but because of what the gift we're given here, more importantly, yours, through me. So this idea of step 11, when I looked at this, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to become this holy roller. And I remember the first time that we got to this point and they said, let's have this exercise. And so I went home, I got on my knees and I felt so inadequate and corny and oh my God. And Father Rock had me pray amongst these instructions is, if there is a God, would you reveal yourself to me in your true form? Get up off my knees. Next morning we'd get out, we'd read, start on 86, and we'd go through the process, and I'd get down on my knees, and if there is a God, would you reveal yourself to me in your true form? And I'd get up and I'd feel awkward, and this is really corny. So one night I'm down in Vermilion, and Tom knows of this period in my life. I'm going back to college, and of course I don't do anything half throttle. I'm taking 24 credits a semester. I'm working 20 hours a week, and we're going to 7 meetings a week and doing 12 steps every weekend and flying to Joe and Charlie, and there's not much going on. My egos come back full bloom, and I know that today. Didn't know that then. Because it's awful hard when you're 27-year-old and you don't have a pot to piss in and you're living in your mother's basement. It's kind of hard to have an ego about much. But now I begin to put together a life, and people are giving me attaboys, and I'm doing good at school, and all this stuff's going in. But the main thing that came was the unmanageability of my life came back in a roar. And I started to look at the 11th step a little bit different, because it talks about being undisciplined. And what was happening in my life is, even when I had good intentions, I'd tell Tom I'd be here, or I'd be there, or I needed to do this, and I was so unmanageable. I was just missing appointments left and right. I couldn't manage a life. It's easy when the biggest thing you got to do today is get up and, maybe go to a meeting. Nobody would hire me in the beginning. Now I got a life. And I remember starting in 86 and laying this out, and this 11th step started to take on a new meaning to me. It started to try to get me to manage a life that's full, to have God manage this, to put those tools, to turn this over. And it was amazing how quick of an impact that had on me. It had a real practical application. And then at night, these guys had me have books up on the headboard of my bed, because I really didn't have a conception of God of any sorts at that point. And I had 3 books. I had the big book. I had a Bible that was given to me by my mother, bless her heart, because I think it was her prayers that actually saved me. And then I had a book from NA. And I would reach up every night and I'd grab one of those books, and I just was instructed to open it up and read. So this night, I'm up on finals, and we're just running like crazy, 12-stepping people. And I got a break, in a semester break, and one of my buddies that I'd met up in the Beersford group, we're going to go fishing the next day. And he calls me because I had 8 finals the next morning. And so I wasn't going to make the Wednesday night meeting. And he talks about fishing up at Lake Ponset, and we're all excited. And so I go to bed that night because I got 6 a.m. finals, and I lay down in my bed, and I've not really had a woo-woo experience since that deal in the treatment center, but the psychiatrist told me that was just like I was hallucinating, so that really wasn't true. So, and I remember reaching up behind me, and it was the first time I grabbed this Bible. I didn't know this Bible. I didn't know what the heck it was. It made no sense to me. And I remember I just flip it open, and this is after I just had an hour phone call with Larry about all these fish we were going to slaughter up at Lake Ponset, and the book flips open. Now, the Bible, I didn't know at the time, but they have black print, and then they have every once in a while red print. Well, the red print's kind of like the squiggly writing in the big book. It's important. My eyes all of a sudden are drawn from the black to the red, and it says, I quote, "Follow me and I'll teach you to be the fishermen of men's souls." Now, that just may be a coincidence for you, but at that moment it was anything but. And I remember having this experience of lifted off that bed, eyes shut, and that warmth that I had felt that they told me was an hallucination filled me. And I was lifted off that bed in this sense of love. And I really do believe that that's really all our mission statement. Follow the dictates of higher power, and we become fishermen of men's souls. And I had that experience. When I finally was able to open my eyes, the sun was up. As I levitated, I wish I had videos back then. It would have been kind of fun to watch. And I remember walking out in this peace and ease of which I couldn't explain. And I walked outside to have a cigarette. I lived in the country between Vermilion and Elk Point. And out of the cornfields and all these things, all these animals started coming, and I felt like I was in a movie of Disney. I had deer within 2 feet from me. I had rabbits, bunnies, I can't remember, coyotes. And what was even weirder is during that experience, it didn't seem weird to me that that was happening. And then the thought came to me, you got finals in 10 minutes. And immediately all that stuff leaked out of me. The animals spread like I was carrying a card-carrying member of the NRA. Experience. Again, how useful is that? You want to have that experience? I can show you the place in Elk Point. You got to just go to bed, grab the right book, It really doesn't serve a purpose for anybody but for me. And again, another way of God revealing himself to me. I'm here. I'm here. I'm personal. I'm here. So we fast forward. I did my first 12-step. My first 12-step, guy named Andy, and he actually sobered up at once. I thought, geez, I'm really good. Now, since then, I don't think I've sobered up anybody, but that was 30 years ago. But man, he just responded. So we go to a conference in the Black Hills, and we're doing this thing. We're taking this book. It's serious and on awakening. We're doing this stuff. We're doing it together. So Andy and I, we drive up mountains. It's dark. Everybody at the conference is doing like we did last weekend, right? So if I had said at 4 a.m, we're going to get in the car and we're going to drive up in the mountains and do our 11th step together, you would have looked at me cross-eyed, Brendan. And most people did, but not Andy and I. We were on a spiritual quest. So we drive up this fire road and we get in this area. It's not even light yet. And we get out and we can kind of see the silhouettes of these cliffs. And Andy's, this is perfect. We get out of the vehicle. We take our big books up. He finds a ledge. I find a ledge. And we're over some canyon. And we begin this process upon awakening, thinking about the 24 hours. And I remember at some point where I'm deep in prayer, in meditation, I heard what sounded like the roar. It sounded like a cavalry or something was coming, but again, could not open my eyes. And what it was is, I guess, the way the sun comes up in those valleys and mountains is that's what brings the wind. And the wind was gathering in this valley, and it came up this mountain front, up this cliff, and it hit me and lifted me literally off the rock. And I remember Andy was down lower to my right. It took me a while as I sat in that peace, and I felt like what I've never felt like in my life, that I'm a part of, that I'm whole, that I'm connected. That ain't me. And I remember when I could open my eyes and there were tears, I looked down, and at the same moment, Andy opened his eyes and turned to me, and he had just tears running down. He had the same experience as I did, sitting there, and we never spoke. We couldn't speak getting down off that mountain. We walked down, we got in the car, and we're driving back down, not a word said. Andy opens up the big book, flips open to the part of Bill's story. It comes, it was like a clean wind of mountaintop blew through and through. Both of us just bawling. God touching down, reaching down to me in a vital spiritual experience, going, Eric, I'm here, I love you. You're connected. It's personal. It was about 2 years ago, there was this really smart guy. I've worked in and out of the field of trying to get people help. So as a professional at different times. And he talked about, as a medical doctor, they've been doing studies on the power of prayer. And they said that they've been studying monks and all this stuff. And they said literally, there's two parts of the brain, left and right. And he said that when people are deep in prayer, they light up, their brain lights up on whatever meters are doing, literally almost like a nuclear reaction. They've never seen it. And not only that, now they can prove that prayer changes synapses on the brain, which are, as he said, the old ways going away and new ideas coming in. He said that the problem when we experience God on the right side of our brain is there's no language associated with that. These are the lightning bolts. I remember when the time Andy, we did not have words to describe what happened. But he said it takes really for permanency and shift is we also need that educational variety, because that's where our change in thinking, ideas, attitudes, all of it must change. They can physically, medically prove this today. He said prayer changes everything up here. It's amazing. I thought, yeah, that's what's been going on here. Had no idea. The reason I have not been here in a few weeks is I had another medical development. And I've had a few. When you burn both ends of the candle like I did, and you live for a good part of 17 years on nothing but chemicals, you can hurt stuff. So I've had 3 heart attacks previous. First in that detox, and we finally identified some issues that were going on. We thought we were good, but I started not feeling good on this day. But again, I just, as normal, I discount. Everybody left and went on. And I remember getting hit while I'm getting ready to go to work with this massive pain. And it's hard to describe. It's as if something reached inside of me, grabbed me, and just twisted in a way. And it was a pain I've not felt. Every heart attack I've had in the past has never been what you hear. You know, you get chest pains, arm thing, not me. You know, my left toe starts to hurt, you know. Oh, yeah, heart attack. Oh, okay. That's why they say you'll never miss your second heart attack. Baloney. I've missed 3. They're all different. This was the closest thing to a heart attack that I think is supposed to be like a heart attack. But I'm in the shower. There's no one around. And I doubled up, and that's lights out, baby. So I come to, and I'm laying in the shower, I think. And I'm acutely aware of my surroundings, but not really. And the thing that struck me more than anything is something felt strange. That's the best way I can put it into words. I was trying to tell Mike this because it's still hard because I had such a right brain experience. I don't have the language for it yet. But the thing that hit me was I finally realized is I didn't hurt anywhere. Good God, I didn't know what that felt like till you don't feel it or you feel it. There was this sense of lightness and ease in me. It was quite appealing. And I'm laying in this status, and I became less and less aware that I was, you can call that these near-death thing, but it's kind of probably what it was. But I never left my body, went up and looked and said, hey, dude, there you are. I mean, it wasn't like that. I didn't go to some light and Jesus met me and said, it's not your time left. You know, yet. You go back, young man. It wasn't like that. But I laid in this suspended state. I know I did. I lost 90 minutes. And I became aware of this same peace, this warmth. I don't even know how to describe it, even today, that I've experienced on that couch with the guitar on about day 5 of this walk, to what I discovered on that bed in Vermilion, to what I discovered in the Black Hills there on that mountain. But it was the same. That I do know. And I was kind of suspended in this deal. And for a minute and for a while, it felt really good not to hurt. I got to get hip replaced. I got a lot of orthopedic stuff. But even more than that, I was free of these defects. I felt it. There was no fear. I wasn't angry. I wasn't scared of being in that situation. And I was acutely aware that this is it. I had a conscious idea that I think this is it. What AA has brought me is, even though I've done things wrong, even though I've done things backwards, even though I've done what you've suggested not to do, even though I've done what you've suggested to do at times half-heartedly, even though I've never really fully completed my amends, I work damn hard on it, but there's some things you can't make right. Not in this side. I laid in a moment with no regret. Even though I got a wife that, oh God, I love her. 2 boys, 12 and 9. If this was the moment, it was enough. It was enough. I felt complete. Immediately after this realization I had, and in that suspension, I became acutely aware that I was somehow back in my body. But I still didn't have any pain. And I thought, well, this isn't bad. And then I consciously became aware of my surroundings. You're in a bathtub, you idiot. I'm aware that I've run all the hot water out of the shower and I've been getting hit with ice water for an hour. I'm a little cold. All of a sudden, my thinking kicks in and I think, oh crap, you better call an ambulance. And in all that immediacy of crashing back in my normal fallen, even though I'm recovered state of this fallen critter that's me, I became aware of my pain and I crashed back into my body. And I remember rolling out of that deal and my wife coming, and I still couldn't speak well, and I just said, I think something's happened. I know today for a fact that there's a God, and there isn't a person on this planet that can convince me otherwise. I equally know that this God, for whatever reason, is personal to each and every one of us if we choose. I equally know today that he has a bigger desire to have a relationship with each and every one of us than we ever will for him. Fact. Nobody can convince me any different. I also know that no matter how far down the scale, as the book says, we go, or whatever has plagued you, there's an answer here through these steps. Fact. The real struggles that come for me and maybe you is the belief, the willingness to honestly try. To honestly try. To surrender to the idea that through these simple steps of decisions, of turning my will and life, whatever that may be, over to some innocuous thing of writing inventories and sharing it with people and freaking them out. That's what I thought they were. And then I'm going to go make amends for all this stuff, and I'm thinking, right. Our real enemy lies between these ears. And our misconceptions, our misbeliefs, contempt prior to investigation, putting limits on myself, other people, and especially on God. There's a line in this book where it talks about to us, God does not make too hard of terms for those who earnestly seek. I do believe that's the truth. If you don't have this experience, if you don't have this relationship, if you don't know a God, welcome, because I didn't either. And it's through the experiment and the willingness to follow a few simple suggestions where I began to experience something indescribable and I couldn't explain. It's if we get a belief system, a belief that this AA thing will work for me, and then I'm willing to take some simple actions on top of that. I begin to get results. And these results that are promised in each and every one of these steps will deliver to your life if you do it. I've never seen it fail. And then because of those results, I get this thing and start to build this faith. And this faith gives me increased belief, of which I'm willing to take more action. I get more results. I get more faith, which increases my belief. And it's this process of growing spiritually will revolutionize your life. That is a fact. There's stories upon stories. We just went this weekend. I did not know, other than Mike, any one of those speakers, and they're telling the same story from all across the globe. This thing is real. This idea of having a relationship with God, of gaining a knowledge of what he desires